Hey y'all, Scott here. I've always been a big supporter of local business. You can catch me every week commissioning the fire department to put out the fires I start. I love business so much, I am one now. Want to know why the economy's failed ever since it was introduced? Because there's nothing to buy. Well, I'm here to change that. Introducing my new product, Scott Talks About Game Commercials. I recorded myself talking about game commercials for 17 odd minutes and I decided to sell it at full price. What's full price? Stay tuned. To ensure this product will be as successful as possible, I am forcefully giving everybody it right now. It will start playing and at the end, you will have to pay. If you don't want to be a bum. Oh, it's starting. I've been chipping away at my bucket list lately. Now all I've got to do is have an irrational desire.
PSP. It's like a nut you can play with outside.
I want that. Video games require whatever word I decide to pull out of the hat. Well, that works out. Marketing is crucial to a game's success, whether it's free publicity with word of mouth spreading around or more traditional forms of advertising. You don't see somebody with no access to internet, TV, or other people going, God, if a game called FIFA 20 existed, that would be great. I knew it. People need to learn about a game's existence one way or another, and the method that sticks in a consumer's mind the most has and always will be the video game commercial. You've got print advertisements in magazines, social media campaigns, real-life publicity stunts, sponsorships, believe me. I've seen enough things sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends to the point where I truly know I never want to play it. But commercials can be some of the most elaborate portrayals of a video game. A quick video specifically created to elicit feelings, showing you why you should want this game. Good commercials can be fascinating to analyze. Either they go for something artsy, something that stays in your mind throughout the day and makes you think, something that's just incredibly memorable. It just doesn't leave your mind due to how funny it is, the music used, the product itself being advertised. And then you have the other ones. Today we will be diving into the history of video game commercials. Now, I draw a fine line between a commercial and a trailer. A commercial is generally 30 seconds worth of manipulation, smacked on TV, the internet, what have you, made to appeal to the masses. And while a lot of the same descriptions apply, I see trailers as more so showcasing the game to people more in the know, I guess. No time limit really, just showing what the hell this is. While a trailer can be a commercial and a commercial can be a trailer, we'll be focusing on the advertisements broadcasted on TV or the 30-second spots shoved in your face online. And with that, what better place to start with than... oh god. The 1970s, the decade that sorta kinda just happened. And this was where the video game commercial was born. The Magnavox Odyssey was the first home video game console, so obviously they had an uphill battle in the marketing department. Nobody knew what the term home video game console even meant, so the commercial had to do a great job at showcasing the value of not only the Odyssey, but video games as a whole. So what did they do? They said, rip out the recorder, we got a product to sell.
Odyssey easily attaches to any brand TV, black and white or color, to create a closed-circuit electronic playground. Odyssey gives you all the exciting action of hockey and 11 other challenging play and learning games for the entire family.
I wouldn't be surprised to see cave paintings of this commercial. It is dry, raw, and bare. There's no pizzazz here. It's literally a product description for half a minute. Sure, it tells us what the product is, but there's nothing memorable about it other than the budget for the background music. Of course, commercials evolved after this, and with the introduction of the Atari 2600, commercials definitely went from
electronic games education
to
I'll blow this town to smithereens! Time bombs! Try to get up there in time, Spider-Man!
What the f was that? The Atari 2600 commercials were a nice mix of fact sheets and my worst nightmares. The typical scene, a family who's never been to Great Clips, they're playing Atari 2600 games. I mean, what else would they be doing? It's the 70s. Now, the Odyssey came out in the early 70s. Here we're talking late 70s, and even though a good chunk of these commercials are just bowl cuts using joysticks, there's more going on here. Some little jokes, some interesting animations and graphics. Most of these commercials aren't anything special, but they did the job. They weren't too boring and conveyed the appeal of Atari. On top of that, a lot of these commercials explain what the hell these games were about. When you have games that look like this, you kinda need commercials to go from gameplay to what it's trying to represent by going, it's baseball, you fucking drip. Did you know Breakout's about Prison Break?
You can't keep me in here, Atari.
I have to buy it to see what happens next. Yar's Revenge explicitly makes it clear that this is a flight. Thank God somebody clarified. But of course, we also got some catchy commercials that stick in your mind, like the Centipede one featuring a rap. And back then, you couldn't have a marketing campaign without a slogan and a jingle to go alongside it. No. Of course, with success comes competition, and with more consoles in the fray, we get the coveted 2-TV setup, all to make Atari look like a fucking idiot. Yes, the classic smear campaigns. Commercials designed to not necessarily say why you should buy an Intellivision, but why you should buy one instead of the stupid dumb Atari. And that's all a lot of these commercials were. Hey, here's why you should buy our console. Alright, okay, see you later. You never heard anybody go, "Do you see the ColecoVision commercial with the fingers?" You could swap around the clips of all these commercials and they'd all pretty much be the same. Moving on to the NES era in the mid-80s, for some reason I thought there would be a dramatic improvement in presentation, concept, and memorability in comparison to the previous few commercials we've talked about. See, I give these commercials too much credit sometimes. This guy does his entire narration in one take. You can hear him taking a breath.
Rob, the extraordinary video robot, batteries not included. He helps you tackle even the toughest challenge.
What's it like to play the Nintendo Entertainment System?
To be fair, this commercial begs to ask what it's like to play an NES. Well, you don't get an answer, but your house flies into space? Now that's just talking about hardware-specific commercials. Singular game-specific commercials, this is where it gets a lot better. We see a dramatic increase in memorability. Now that may be because comparing NES games to Atari 2600 games now is like comparing old people to fucking dead people, but I think it's because consumers just started to get smarter. The Atari era ads were very simple. Some of them had some songs or colorful characters, but most ended up being a narrator saying, "Plug this cartridge into your Atari home video game entertainment system for maximum enjoyment." It's like they were expecting the consumer to say, "Is that product? I like product," to the checkbook. As video games became much more widely understood at this point, NES era advertisements didn't have to tell consumers what a cord is. They focused more so on what made their product special, presenting it in an interesting way. Like, we still got a lot of the sitting on a couch playing game commercials, but they had a lot more to them this time. The 80s might as well have been set in space. These commercials pretty much sold many kids on the fact that if they owned a video game system, they might as well be Buzz Aldrin. Here's one I never fully understood. So, space robots, right? It's supposed to zap the power of Game Boy to a kid. Instead, he zaps a kid with a Game Boy into existence. Man, Game Boy is the least interesting thing going on here.
Mario! Mario!
The Mario 3 commercial, man. Literally people shouting for Mario in the shape of Mario. That's it. This and the original Zelda commercials are the highlights of this generation for me. What better way to sell the greatest adventure of all time than with whatever the hell this is?
Did you see the latest Nintendo newsletter? Whoa, nice graphics. I'd like to get my hands on that game. You mean you haven't played it yet?
What's the matter with you? You hand him the newsletter expecting him to not have seen Zelda before. You then act surprised to hear he hasn't played it to end up telling him you have the game. Why don't you start by showing him the game?
It's The Legend of Zelda, and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad.
God exists, right? NES era commercials were either A, with the power of video games, you too can experience pleasure. B, here's some footage of the game and then footage of us pretending the game is real to make it more exciting. Or C, here's some white guys. But as the 90s started coming up hard, Sega put their big boy pants on and released the Sega Genesis. And with that, they introduced one of the most killer marketing campaigns to ever exist.
16-bit arcade graphics.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis does.
16-bit sports action.
You can't do this on Nintendo. Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis
Does.
Genesis does.
Get to it, Nintendo. Buy 16-bit Genesis.
So this is something we don't see too much of these days. Full-blown advertisements with Sega saying, Nintendo f***ing stinks! The 90s were ruthless. Commercials were hell-bent on making the competition look as wimpy as possible. I mean, look at this, okay? It's just going, you should buy an Intellivision if you want. We think it's a little better than Atari. Sega? Oh, they f***ing hated Nintendo. This was the golden age of video game commercials. No longer were they simple narrations over some kids playing a game. Each and every ad had to have some kind of gimmick, something to make them memorable. Half the times, the ads weren't even about the games. They were like, Super Metroid is so crazy, it turns dogs into nerds. It was all about doing extreme and crazy things. It was the 90s, not a church. Unreadable fonts and neon colors were abundant with a stick-it-to-the-man kind of attitude. And then the Yoshi's Island commercial was just gluttony. Almost every company putting out games basically were forced into making their marketing smear campaigns, just constantly putting the competition in its place whenever they could. However, I'd say one of my favorites will always be the Super Mario World commercial. This was a lot of people's introduction to the Super Nintendo as a whole, and I think it does such a fun job showing everything off.
Introducing the next generation from Nintendo. New Super Mario World. Created especially for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. It's a bit more exciting, a bit more challenging, a bit more graphic.
It's just so spot on about everything Mario World was. It didn't need to throw a Sonic in there. It stood on its own. Plus the narrator says a bit more 16 times because the Super Nintendo was 16-bit, and that's just adorable. Throughout the 90s, commercials were consistently similar. As years went on, they definitely eased up on the don't get me wrong, that was still there, but not as much as stuff like the Play It Loud commercials by Nintendo earlier in the decade. Also, the whole beating the competition senseless angle wasn't as prevalent. Sure, the PlayStation features Crash Bandicoot heckling Nintendo headquarters, but other than that, they weren't nearly as ruthless. Instead, with 3D visuals becoming the norm, commercials were either more comfortable focusing primarily on just gameplay, like with the Ocarina of Time ad featuring Conan the Barbarian music blasting against footage, or just being an enjoyable, entertaining ad, hoping to stick in your mind for days after watching it. All the games were becoming more interesting to look at than just this, so they didn't have to try to make the games look more exciting a lot of the time. Instead, they focused on making the commercial on its own exciting and entertaining. Like the Donkey Kong ad back in the early 80s, yeah, it's an ape in the living room, that's the gimmick. The Smash Brothers ad featured Nintendo characters assaulting each other. It's everything I always wanted. The game itself already looked great, the live action segments were there to make the commercial itself great on its own. Now moving into the 2000s, yeah, commercials got weird. This was when marketers were trying to be funny and memorable for all the wrong reasons. They just put some weird shit on the screen, that'll scar them into buying a PS3. See, the original PlayStation 3 commercials, the one with the baby doll crying and the PS3 levitating, you know that one. How did that one even start production? I got it! Sony was very confident they could sell anything with the word PlayStation and a number after it, so they just pulled words out of a hat and made a commercial about it all. That's not to say all the commercials from the 2000s were oddballs, we got some incredible ones. To advertise the PlayStation 2, Sony made a commercial for the PlayStation 9. That worked? They didn't even say PlayStation 2 in the ad. There were the Animal Crossing commercials that were parodying reality shows at the time, a guy playing Frogger Advance during a prostate exam, really going for relatability on that one. This Ratchet & Clank commercial, but easily one of the greatest marketing campaigns that I still can't easily explain.
We would like to play.
We Would Like to Play is so simple yet so poignant. 2 Japanese businessmen go door to door forcing families to play the Wii. It was a felony turned commercial. It kind of showcased the quirkiness yet understandability of the Wii. Like yeah, them showing up is weird, but people immediately got the hang of how to play and were having fun. And while the Wii's initial marketing campaign was successful, you could tell that it affected how most of Nintendo's future advertisements were going to be. Just look at the Nintendo DS ads. We went from this, before the Wii came out, just Kirby and a finger, love that game, to Beyonce playing Rhythm Heaven. That's it. It's not a bad ad, and it's weirdly stuck in my brain. I kind of immediately think about this when Rhythm Heaven is brought up. But it's not a fun ad, come on, where's the fat guy exploding? Nintendo's ads became very safe after the release of the Wii. Even after the We Would Like to Play campaign came to a close, they just kinda had bare bones advertisements. They didn't really make you think, they weren't particularly funny, they weren't bad, but they didn't really do much more than tell you, this game's coming out. Some of them looked really nice, they were really cool for fans, but I wouldn't consider them to be titans of the game commercials. I will say though, I love the new Super Mario Bros. Commercial with Super Mario Bros. Transforming into New Super Mario Bros. I always just found that to be so fun and cool. At least Sony picked up their slack and launched a new campaign to revitalize the PlayStation 3. Kevin Butler was the fictional higher-up at Sony who single-handedly put the spotlight on the system and made it so much more attractive. The ads were funny, they conveyed how much value was in the PS3 at that point, and he got fired for accidentally appearing in a commercial advertising Mario Kart. Sony really got a knack for advertising at this point, and that led into these awesome huge commercials celebrating the legacy of PlayStation. You could really tell they were trying to get a hold of the sense of community and family that Nintendo had with its characters, and I'd be lying if I say they failed. And moving into the PlayStation 4 era, the Perfect Day commercial. Fellow video game players all taking place in activities that are supposed to represent certain games without naming them at all. We have Gladiator Tussle, Drive Drive Crash and Burn in typical video game. Just them all singing the song Perfect Day together just gives me such a positive feeling. It makes you want a PlayStation 4 without telling you why you should want it. That's really impressive. It gives off this weird feeling of we've come this far without showing the console or any gameplay. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, but this commercial is just so good. And then the Xbox One commercials went back to how the Magnavox Odyssey commercials were set up. That's not a joke. This is why I like the Xbox One. Here I am on a couch, $4.99. There honestly isn't really a single Xbox One commercial I remember fondly. But my god, is it better than what was happening a couple doors down. The Wii U commercials. Now, this is odd because Nintendo did a fairly decent job with the 3DS ads. Nothing crazy most of the time, but they get mega points for having Robin Williams and his daughter Zelda appear in the Ocarina of Time 3D ad. The Wii U originally hit the scene with these commercials, with people in boxes playing Wii U games to dubstep. Why did this console fail? The Wii U advertisements that followed were bad. Almost none of these ads did anything other than surface level marketing. They weren't clever or funny or interesting. Nintendo just leaned heavily into the Wii U is the family system for family games. I'd say one of the best ones though was the Super Mario Maker campaign. This had fantastic visuals and grandiose music accompanying everything. But for every Super Mario Maker ad, there were 12 Yoshi's Woolly World ones.
Whoshi! It's a double Yoshi explosion!
What does that even mean? There was the commercial that came out a solid year after the Wii U launched, with kids trying to explain to their parents what the Wii U was. I mean, at least they were self-aware, nobody knew what this is.
So, you want a Wii U this holiday? We'll watch and learn. Here's Mom. We already have a Wii, Sweetiekins. Here's you. Wii U is a total upgrade, Mother. And did you get younger?
Most of the 3DS and Wii U era Nintendo advertisements were like puppet shows. They featured a kid in the Nintendo world with a goofy narration reading off the bullet points on the back of the game's box. But it's pretty obvious Nintendo did a complete 180 with marketing the Nintendo Switch. They would generally only make new Wii U commercials when a new game came out and during Christmas. Now they sprinkle them throughout the year, not necessarily anything all too funny or memorable, but commercials showcasing the Nintendo Switch in heavy lifestyle-esque commercials. And that's just how a lot of commercials are these days, lifestyle pieces. And that works well, but I will always cherish the more unique ads, the ones that just stick in your mind. And I just got back from the doctor and they said that's not normal, it's a disease. It's reverse Alzheimer's. Well, I hope you enjoyed Scott Talks About Game commercials. To pay, please send a check through one of the following methods. If you cannot send a single check, a checkbook will do. What will I do with all the money? That's tough to say. I think I might buy out the economy. You can do stuff like that. Technically speaking, IBM owns the weather.